Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today in the first session of our
Mhm.
Mailing 101 webinar series. So my name's Cyril, and I'm one of the sales representatives at Royle Printing that works with our publisher and association customers. Also joining us today on the call is Todd Kintoff, our very own mailing manager slash guru, who guides us through the ever-changing postal landscape, as well as helping our customers improve their magazine's deliverability. Todd, it's great to have you today. Would you say I gave an accurate summary of some of the things you do?
Absolutely. Guru kind of covers it all.
Excellent. Well, really appreciate having you here. Uh, you bring a lot of value to the table. So, in my time working
Sure.
with associations, I've noticed some common pain points, many of which pertain to mailing. So, not only does it take time to become familiar with all the nuances that come with mailing a magazine, but with the frequent changes of staff within nonprofit associations, especially, one of the bigger challenges is passing along this knowledge to new staff members that are involved with the mailing side of things. So our plan is to record this series of webinars, which will cover different topics relating to mailing, and host them on our YouTube channel, which will serve as a knowledge base so you can direct new team members to as needed to get them up to speed on the mailing side of things. So in this first session, we'll touch on the basics of mailing, so the different classes of mail, and some of the processes that are applied to your mail list in order to increase the magazine's deliverability. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to post them in the Q&A tab at the top of your Microsoft Teams window, and we'll address each of them at the end of the session. I think that covers most
Mhm.
of what I had to say. So Todd, take us away.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you. Thank you, Cyril. And, I would encourage people if they're going to post questions too. Um, if you have questions on stuff, even what we're not talking about today, feel free to post them, and or follow up with Cyril or myself, outside of this, and we'll make sure you get any of those questions answered as well. So our topic here today, so we can kind of set the scale here. So understanding different classes of mail. So we're just going to start talking about nonprofits a little bit. So high probability, most people on the phone here today are currently taking advantage of mailing at nonprofit rates with the post office. But I do want to bring it to some people's attention, just in case you're not. So you're aware that there are, when you're dealing with either periodical mail or marketing mail, nonprofit rates are available. You do have to get it authorized to mail at those. If you're a marketing mail user, you would complete a form 3624. If you need assistance with getting that form or completing it, again, reach out. We can help you with that. But that would ask for certain information about your organization, your charter, things like that. There's a high probability that if you're considered a nonprofit by the IRS, you'll probably get nonprofit authorization from the Postal Service. And if you're periodicals, you would generally, when you file for periodical status, there's a spot on that form to also be considered for nonprofit. If you're mailing at a periodical rate and not getting nonprofit, um, you can complete, just that part of the form and have it examined on its own. So why is that important? Well, it lowers your postage rate. That's the bottom line, right? So nonprofit marketing mail pays 35 to 40% less than regular rate marketing mail. So substantial difference there that you want to take advantage of if you qualify. The second one is if you're doing periodical mail, it's not quite as substantial. They're taking periodical mail calculation or postage calculation is got about 4 different sections on a mailing statement, and there's a 5% discount that applies to all but the advertising portion of their calculation. So just round numbers, consider it 5% discount on periodicals postage. So once again, if you qualify, by all means, need to be taking advantage of that as well, especially with the way rates have been going up nowadays. So let's talk a little bit about those two different classes of mail. You have marketing mail. Okay, we'll start with that. A lot of people will think of that as catalogs, but publications that aren't mailing at a periodical rate will qualify then at marketing mail. USPS in their domestic mail manual defines it as that it consists of mailable matter that is neither mailed nor required to be mailed as first-class mail. If it's a personal correspondence, that needs to be sent out at first-class mail. So, and it also says, and if you're not authorized to mail out periodicals and you're less than 16 ounces, then you fall into this marketing mail category. Okay, which many of you certainly do. Some of the pros of if you're using marketing mail, one right now the USPS has, and for the last several years there have been promotions that the post office is offering. We had a call on that. I think it was early in January, and we'll have another one touching base on some of the promotions that are available later in the year. We'll probably do that more like in about the June timeframe. But currently there's one running right now for the tactile discount. And if you're using certain papers, practically I haven't found a paper that hasn't qualified yet. Gloss paper, matte paper, satin paper, all of these will qualify for their discount, which is 5%. That's 5% off the bottom line of postage. Doesn't matter if you're regular rate or nonprofit rate, you get the 5% off the bottom line. So want to make sure we're, again, if you're mailing with us here today and you qualify for that, we are going to make sure that you're getting that discount. We will reach out to you. We'll find out if you want to do some of the things necessary to enroll with the post office. You would have to do that with each and every mailing, but it's certainly simple to do. I have a few 6-7 step document to guide you through that process that we would be able to share. And then you can take advantage of that. If you sooner and you have us do it, we do have a small fee for our time and more because we have to send pieces in to them. And it's to cover the costs of doing all of those things. But we can certainly do that. And we are trying to make sure with everybody who qualifies for this 5%, and that's from mailings February 1st through July 31st, you're getting advantage of that. Okay. Another advantage of marketing mail is there's no frequency requirements. We'll talk in a moment about how often you're required to mail periodicals. And that will be something that prevents some people from taking advantage of a periodical class. But again, you can mail one issue a year. It goes out in marketing mail. You can mail 12 issues a year. Doesn't matter. Some of the cons, if you will, for marketing mail, as we mentioned, the rates are higher. So the difference, I guess maybe I didn't mention, but between marketing mail, we'll just say regular marketing mail rate and periodical mail rate, there's probably about a 30 to 35% difference in postage. So again, another reason, if you can get into the periodic class, maybe you consider it, right? Before you run off and do that, I would suggest reaching out. We have some conversations about that. But marketing mail as a whole is higher than periodicals. Another negative to it is that it does get a deferred delivery. I don't think that's quite as important nowadays. There was a time when things were more manual processes, but now things are very much sorted together. Co-mail processes put marketing mail and periodicals in the same bundle of carrier route mail. But there was a time where marketing mail, and it still would be deferred. So if the carrier has to deliver X number of feet of mail per day, if they have to make a decision on what goes onto the street and what to leave behind, marketing mail was always the stuff then that would get left behind. Okay. I put on here a con is you have to use a permit imprint or an indicia on your mail piece. Not a big deal, but some people, it takes up more space perhaps on the cover of the book, whether it be the front cover or the back cover. Some people may not like that, but as marketing mail, you have to have that there. Can't get around that. And another thing to remember with marketing mail, if your mail piece is undeliverable as addressed, or UAA mail, and it's not marked with an endorsement to forward, saying you're going to pay them for any forwarding costs, So any of those pieces would be disposed of by the post office. So it's not making it to its intended audience, whether it be to read your publication or if you're doing any fundraising activities, trying to get donations. You're not going to get a donation if it's not arriving to your intended audience. So something to consider there with marketing mail. So switching gears, periodical mail. So periodical mail, if you've been around for a long time, you probably have heard it called second class mail. That went away, as a term some 25 plus years ago, but the classification still exists. So if you want to try to take advantage of and be a periodical, there are 4 basic things to consider that you have to meet. 1, your publication has to show continuity from issue to issue, and that the publication you have to be for transmitting information of general or a specific nature. So pretty simple. Most all your publications are going to meet that criteria. This is the one that might get some people. You have to be published on a regular frequency of at least 4 times a year. Now, regular frequency does not mean every 3 months, right? You could do it 4 days in a row if you had 4 different publications, as long as that's what your stated frequency of the publication would be. Key part here is you have to do it at least 4 times a year. And I know that with rising costs and shrinking budgets, that can be difficult to maintain. The third thing is you have to have a known office of publication. That's fairly simple. They're just looking for, you need to have if you have a business office somewhere with stated business hours, and really what the post office would be looking for there is if they wanted to come in and audit circulation records, they just need to have a place to go and know that they can go there and talk to someone regarding those records. And then the fourth thing is it needs to be formed of printed sheets. Well, we're printers, so if we're doing work with you on those things, you certainly would be formed of printed sheets. So those are the 4 things. If you think you can somewhat qualify for those, you may want to consider going down the path of being a periodical. Now, the one other thing that you need to be aware of too is post office is going to want to review your circulation records. They were going to make sure that at least half of your pieces are going out to people who are qualified requesters or subscribers. They don't have to have paid for it. In your market, you may when people pay probably their annual membership fees, you may have a statement in there that $20 of your fee goes towards the XYZ magazine published 4 times a year. So if you have those records, that could qualify you as well for this. But again, I believe you have to touch base with those people and make sure that they're updating things every 3 years. So again, are people doing this, and do you have the proper records? So when the post office comes in, you may say you have 10,000 people who qualified. They're going to go through, they're going to take some samples, and based on that sample, they're going to determine what percentage of that do they consider to be qualified. Then they'll run the numbers and see if you will meet their requirements as well. So it takes some time to go through all of this, but again, it very well might be worth it in the long run. So some of the if we can go back just 1 second. Yeah, so some of the pros we're going to talk about here for periodical mail. Again, what you heard, lower rates than marketing mail. Absolutely. Again, in co-mail worlds and stuff like that, we talked about preferred versus deferred delivery. If there's a decision to be made, they should get a preferred delivery. Okay. No mail indicia is needed. You just put an address on the mail piece, so you get more of your cover area for your use and less for the post office. And then another pro is you can get forwarding of the mail piece as long as it's within 60 days of when, if I'm as a consumer have moved and I tell the post office about it, then and the piece comes through within a 60-day window, it could be forwarded onto my new address as well, as opposed to being disposed of that we talked about for marketing mail. So some of the cons, if you will, periodicals are not eligible for these USPS promotions. So that 5% discount based on the type of paper we're using, not available. Overall, periodical class of mail is not covering their costs with the post office, so they're not going to give the periodical mailers an additional discount off of the rates that aren't covering the costs. Even though costs are high, they're still not covering the costs. The other thing to remember is you have to maintain all these circulation records, right? That can be costly to do that. Maybe you have to have a third party company help you with that. Maybe it's even somebody's full-time job to do that stuff. So you have to think about that too. And then the last thing is you have to produce a statement of ownership once a year, right around the end of the year. But this is a postal year, and their year goes from October 1 through September 30th. So in that early fall period, you have to do this statement of ownership. And essentially it's just, it's a form, right, that you have to fill out and submit once a year. And it's just showing, summing up how many you're sending out, who they're going to, are they in the mail, are they out of the mail? And they're just making sure that you're still qualifying for these rates. And, again, they don't audit every mailer. I don't know how they do it. I think if your percent of people that are receiving it gets to be dangerously close to that 50% number, that may trigger an audit. And then there's probably just a random process that they pull people on as well. So, all right, next slide, please. So those were the classes of mail. Let's switch gears here just a little bit, and we'll talk about some list hygiene. So those names and addresses you have that you're sending out, making sure that they're the best, at least from a mail perspective, that they can be. Okay, so there's a few different things. Next slide, please, on that. So a real simple thing to remember here is following this 3C approach to address quality. Okay, are the addresses you're maintaining, are they complete, right? Do they have the directionals? Do they have suite numbers, apartment numbers? Do they have the full city, state, zip information? Are they correct? We get lists in here and we run them through processes, and we do a lot of updating of stuff. I'll just use addresses that were being updated for the 911 emergency system, right? They used to be kind of more rural route style addresses that have been changed over to city style addresses. So you need to make sure you're maintaining and storing, again, that correct address. And then are they current? The last one. About 17% of the population moves every year and files a change of address with the post office, of which my understanding is only about 50% of the people who move are telling the post office where they're moving to. But it's important to keep up with those changes, right? And there's tools that will allow you to be able to do that. And again, just keep in mind, if you're using these names and addresses for multiple things, we may be doing the publication for you, but you may be doing other promotional pieces or sharing it with other groups that you want to make sure everything that's going out is getting to a recipient as well. Next address or next slide, please. So a few of the things you can look at doing here. There's what I'm calling pre-mailing solutions, and there's post solutions. Pre-solutions, things like CAST certifying a list. Before we do a mailing, we have to cast the list. That standardizes the address elements. It takes avenue and it makes it AVE. Street is ST, etc. So I understand you may not have software to do things like that. If you do need help in doing things like this, you can reach out to us. We can help you with that. There are certainly other providers that can assist with that stuff too. But I always think that the best is to make sure that when you put the address into your database, that it is complete, correct, and current to the best of your ability. You start off on the right foot with that address. NCOA link. So NCOA is the National Change of Address Database. So as a consumer, if I'm going to send in if I'm going to move and I file a change of address with the post office, my information goes into their NCOA link product, and it'll stay in there for up to 48 months. So if you're doing marketing mail, you need to meet a move update requirement. One of the ways to do that is passing the address file against the national change of address list to identify where those moves are. So if we're doing that on your behalf, we do that before the mailing. Any of those moves that happen, we will return to you. And hopefully you can take those, and update your information. So next time it comes through, we don't have to do the updating. I don't know who's on the phone here, but I know that there's a lot of people. So I'm not going to call anybody out, but I can tell that there's a lot of times we're running NCOA on files and customers aren't updating their internal databases with this information. And I can tell because the reports that we get will show us how long ago moves were identified, in months 1 through 48. And if people are updating them, and if they're mailing every 3 months, I shouldn't see a lot of moves outside of that last 4-month window. But you'll still see people with moves that took place way out in that 48 months, and you just know if they're not updating their records with these people now, they're not going to get that information again in the future. So those are pre-solutions. Now we've produced the mail, it goes out, and it's identified at that time as being perhaps not deliverable for any reasons. So there are some ways, the address change service programs with the post office, that can help identify and get the information back to you. Generally, these are getting you information back electronically. Okay. Some of them there's a cost to, some of them are free. Before you would just kind of bull straight ahead to say, let's just do one of these, reach out. I'd sooner have that conversation with you and kind of explain what each of them are and what you need to do and what you're going to, probably more importantly, what are you going to get back from this process? So, but these are things that are taking place after the fact. You have to have a plan. You have to sign up with the post office, right? And then we have to know this, so we have to put information in the barcode when we're doing it. So when the post office gets it, they're going to return it to you. One thing to consider too, it's not just people who've moved that have addresses. When I said 50% of the people don't tell the post office, you want to know about the other 50% too. So those things come back in the form of a NICSI notice. My carrier may notice that I've moved. I had a for sale sign on my front yard. It's gone. Somebody else is receiving mail at that home. They don't know where I went, but they can file a change of address, just indicating that I'm no longer there. So you would get that information back through these services, and then you can determine what to do with them. Probably pull them out of the mailing, but do you have phone numbers or email addresses? Something you can reach out to them and kind of reactivate them as well. So that's an example of a real good post-mailing solution to consider. Next slide, please. So something else, again, when we're talking about these address qualities, we're talking about standardizing addresses, having all the information correct for any time we use it. So one of the, some people will use merge purging, as it says, AKA deduping process. And really that's trying to identify if you're taking lists in from multiple sources, right? And you're merging them together. You may know that the people in this department have duplication because they're doing similar activities, or they maybe started with the same list. They've got a donors list or something, and you've got a different list. So there's going to be some crossover, right? So you can just send out 2 pieces, one, so they get it kind of from 2 lists, but they're getting 2 pieces. That can, be expensive, right? That you're paying for manufacturing of the publication as well as the postage. So this merge, purge, or deduping process can be done. It can be set up in a number of different ways, but the goal is to try to remove duplicates that are found, so you're only sending one to these individuals.
I'll chime in here real quick and mention
Yeah.
a couple of example use cases for merge purge, which could apply to our listeners. So, use case number one, let's say, for instance, that your list has duplicate entries of the same member. So, in order to only mail a single copy to that member instead of however many times they're in the final list, you would set the criteria for the deduplication as one per name. Use case number two, let's say you have multiple association members that live under the same roof, but you only want to send them a single copy of the magazine. You could set the criteria for the deduplication as one per address. Use case number three, just to give you an example of what you can do with merge purge, let's say you have multiple members living under the same roof, but you want them to each receive a single copy of the magazine, but also your list could potentially have duplicate entries of the same members. So for that, you would set the criteria as one per name per address. So as you can see, there are many ways that you can merge purge your list depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But like Todd said, the end goal is to really limit the number of copies you print and mail. So back to you, Todd.
Okay. Yeah. So again, these are things when, if we're working with you, we just need to know, which of these types of matchings are you looking for us to accomplish? And then we'll also, we'll feed you back those results so you can see what we're getting as well. So next slide, please. So do we have any questions that were submitted, Sally?
Let me take a peek.
All right.
Yeah, if
All right,
anyone
there-
has any questions they want to bring up, also feel free to unmute yourself. Like if there's anything that comes to mind regarding mailing, this would be a great time to address them. Otherwise, we'll cover more ground in future sessions.
You got some praise, Todd, so that's positive.
Okay. Print that out. I'll hold on to that.
Any questions, anyone? I don't see any in the Q&A, but if anybody wants to turn on their microphone.
Okay, well, that's okay. Well, I guess that concludes the first session of our Mailing 101 series. So we've listed some of the key takeaways of this session, which are the importance of running CAS and NCOA to your mail list. CAS being address standardization and adding of a ZIM+4 to each record, as well as updating the records in your database with the results we send back. So if you export your database with unique member IDs, we can give you those back with the NCOA results so that you can update your database by mass importing them back into whatever software you're using to manage your member base. Also, if you're ever trying to eliminate duplicate records and limit the number of magazines printed and mail, we highly encourage you to use some type of merge purge. In future sessions, we'll do a deeper dive into the more advanced processes, list segmentation, co-mail, and promotions that are being run by USPS in the second half of the year that yield a 3 to 5% discount on postage for marketing mail class. So I hope that you guys found this session useful. As a reminder, a recording will be posted to our YouTube channel, so feel free to share these with your team members as needed. If you ever have questions relating to your circulations, please don't hesitate to reach out to Todd or myself, as we're here to offer support however we can. Thanks again for attending this webinar, and we'll see you next time.